everyone. Welcome back to Build. I'm your host, Brittany Jones-Cooper. And attention, Bachelor Nation. Today, I'm chatting with Amanda Stanton about her new book, Now Accepting Roses. In it, she shares never-before-told stories from behind the scenes of The Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise, details about her relationships from those shows, and it's pretty juicy, and tips for juggling, dating, and parenting. Please help me welcome Amanda Stanton.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How crazy is it that this book, I'm sure this was like a labor of love. I mean, it's so personal. You're so vulnerable in it. How does it feel that it's finally out and that people are going to get to read your take and your story?
I'm so excited. So I've actually been working on this book for almost 2 years now. So it was a very long process. But yeah, when I was writing it, it was almost therapeutic. It was kind of like my journal. And now that it's coming out, I'm like, oh, now everyone's going to read it, which is kind of scary, but it's exciting at the same time. So
did you keep a journal at all during all of this, or did you just have a good memory and you could remember everything?
So I did not keep a journal. It's something that I actually do now after I wrote this. But I would always, I would remember things and I would write in my notes, and that helped a lot during the writing process.
So let's just jump right in because there's so much to talk about. And the first is, we first met you on The Bachelor with Ben. Mm-hmm. What I didn't realize is that it was so soon after your divorce. Yeah. And you were in such a raw and vulnerable place. I mean, that was such a revelation to me. I didn't know you were kind of going through all of that at that time.
Yeah, so I was pretty freshly divorced. I hadn't gone on a date since. But it's funny because now I feel like I've grown so much since the show. And I'm like, oh, if I would go on the show now, I feel like I would have been so much more confident. And I don't know, I just would have been different now. But I'm almost glad that I did go on the show during that time because I feel like it really helped me grow and learn a lot. So
that must have been so crazy. I mean, dating is hard enough, but for that to be your entry into dating, bravo.
It was terrifying.
That is such an intense experience. Yeah. And I also love that you really kind of take us through. You really write this book for a lot of different people. You write it for fans, but you also, I feel like it's almost for any woman who's thinking about going on The Bachelor as well.
Yeah, so I wanted it just to be for everybody. It's for single girls that need help with dating. It's for single moms. There's a lot of advice for single moms in there, but I didn't want it just to be for single moms. So obviously fans of The Bachelor, I feel like anyone can relate to some aspect of it.
Well, you gave some real insights into kind of the isolation that you go through when you decide to be a part of this show. Can you just kind of tell them a little bit about kind of how they keep you separate before you meet Ben and all of that stuff? It's very kind of a lonely experience a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's why you become so close with everybody else on the show. That's why we're all such good friends afterwards, is because you're separated from the rest of the world. You don't have your phone, you don't have TVs, you have nothing. So all you really have is each other, and you have to find ways to entertain yourselves during the day. But it does get lonely. You don't have any contact with your family or anyone for a long period of time. So,
including on those amazing trips. That was maybe the most disappointing thing I read.
Yeah. So everyone's like, oh my God, you got to go to all these amazing places. And I'm like, well, I was sitting in a hotel room the whole time. Yeah.
The entire time.
Yeah.
But it sounds like inspired a travel bug for you though, too.
It did, for sure. Yeah.
So you get to actually travel on your own terms, because that seems like a farce. Those trips look so beautiful and amazing, and then you're in a hotel room the entire time.
Yeah, usually you get to go on one amazing date wherever you are, and then it's kind of a tease, because then the rest of the time you're just sitting in your hotel. Yeah. So
it is a very structured show. I guess they have to keep things they have to produce it. And part of that is producing interactions and experiences. And you do talk about having a positive experience with the producers. But when it came to introducing Ben to your kids, that's something that maybe you would do a little differently now.
Yeah, I mean, I do things differently now, for sure. But I also don't regret doing it the way that I did back then. But it's not something I wouldn't normally go on, 3 dates and, know a guy for 2 weeks and introduce him to my kids. But yeah, I mean, it is a show, and at the end of it, you're supposed to get engaged. So it made sense to bring him home to meet them.
Did you feel like viewers had opinions about that decision? You talk about that a little bit in the book. Just, you were in the moment, you were following your heart, but also viewers had their own opinions about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of realized people will just have an opinion on everything, especially when it comes to parenting. So there's so many people that, judge me for that and said they would never do that. But I'm sure those same people, if they were in my exact situation, probably would have done the same thing. So I think it's just hard to understand the situation that we're in. So I think that's why people, pass so much judgment on it, is because they don't really understand. So I think there's a little bit of insight on it in my book. So yeah.
You really are a Bachelor expert at this point. So speaking of the Bachelor franchise, do you have opinions for who you think should be the next one, or who you would like to see?
I've kind of realized, I think they do a good job of choosing the next Bachelor, and I think everyone's interesting. I think that even if it's someone you're not excited about, by the time the season starts airing and you're watching, you end up really liking the person once you get to know them more. But I don't know. I think Mike would be a great choice, and I think Peter also would be a really good choice. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes, for sure. So let's move on to Bachelor in Paradise. This was probably it seems like maybe a hard chapter or section of the book to write, because it mentions Josh, who you were very much in love with, and you say that he was the only man that kind of broke your heart.
Yeah. I feel like that was my first time really experiencing heartbreak. There's been other times where my relationships didn't work out, but that was really hard because I think it was the first time I really wanted something to work so bad, and it just wasn't. So it was definitely probably the most emotional time in my life. But yeah.
Do you think all of that was just compounded with the pressure to make it work too? I mean, obviously you love him, but very early it seemed like there were some red flags, and you talk about his aggression and some jealousy and things like that. Did you feel pressure to make it work though because of how you met?
Yeah, there's always a certain level of pressure when you're in a relationship off the show, because so many people are invested in your relationship. And so you obviously want to make it work for you and for your relationship, but you also kind of feel like you want to make it work for everyone else that's invested. And you kind of feel like you're letting everyone else down. And also, it can be kind of embarrassing not having something work that you put out there for the world to see. So there's definitely a lot of pressure there.
And obviously Josh is somebody who kind of can't stay out of the headlines. I mean, Andy wrote an entire book about her experience with him as well. Did you talk to him before you wrote this book, or were there any conversations about what you were going to disclose about your relationship?
So I think, my book, in the chapter where I talk about Josh, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't a book where I was just bashing him for no reason. And everything that I wrote in there, I think, was kind of relevant to what I learned from that situation and what I wanted the readers to take from it. So there's not really anything in there that's just unnecessary and mean. But yeah, I mean, he knows that I wrote it, and I haven't heard from him in a while. But I don't think there's anything in there that probably the people who watched Paradise didn't kind of see for themselves. It's kind of just reiterating it. So I don't really think, yeah. I think he's all right.
What do you think his mom thinks?
I'm sure they're not happy. But like I said, I wrote this book. I started writing it almost 2 years ago. So it's just coming out now. And it's funny because some people are like, oh my God, like she's still talking about this and that. And I'm like, well, I did start writing this a long time ago. But it's just coming out now. But I still think there's like so many lessons in there and good advice and, just kind of my perspective and things that I learned from my experiences that.
Well, you also need time to process things. I mean, if you write a book right in the moment, I think that's almost worse because you're really too emotionally attached to things. I think when you have a little time to process your relationship, to look at his actions, your actions, everybody's responsibility in it, it's a little more honest.
Totally. And that's why I had a little help writing this book. I had someone named Allie help me write it. And that's exactly what she was saying. She was like, if you wrote this book when you're fresh out of a breakup, you're going to be angry. And then later you're going to read it back and be like, okay, I don't really want to say all this stuff once you calm down. So I think it's good that I've had a lot of time, and I feel like it's very level-headed now. Yeah.
And also, I think it's, not to harp too much on Josh, but I do think it's a good lesson for young women to pay attention to red flags. Like if somebody doesn't like that you're listening to Justin Bieber, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Things like that, I think women need to pay attention to.
Totally. Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to, because when I was on the show and I started dating Josh, I got a lot of crap for it because people were like, they could see the red flags and they were like, what is she doing? But I think as much as I felt kind of stupid, I think everybody's been there where you just like someone so much that you ignore red flags or you make excuses for them. So I think a lot of people can relate to that.
And you got a friend out of it. I see you and Andy are like having fun.
Yes.
I mean, it's
so funny.
a unique bond, but she's probably the only person who kind of understands how this whole Bachelor world is and how it works. It must be nice to have a friend like that.
Yeah, a lot of my friends are actually from the show. And like I said, it's because, we were isolated. We went through this crazy experience and we become so close. So yeah, it's fun. And Andy and I are great friends now. And yeah, It's great.
We have to talk a little bit about the second Bachelor in Paradise. That was a completely different experience, and it was so. I mean, when you write about it in the book, we had all the things going on with Corinne, and then you're not really that into Robbie. I mean, how different was that second experience, and what did you learn from that compared to the first one?
So the second time around, I was having a really hard time after my breakup with Josh, and I was like, I think it'll be good for me to go back and kind of give things another shot because the first time I did ignore a lot of red flags and things didn't work out for me. So I wanted another chance at it, but I just think there was nobody there for me that time, and Robbie was cool on the show. He was great. We became almost good friends, and we bonded during our time there, but it wasn't something that I saw lasting long term, or he wasn't somebody that I had strong feelings for. But yeah, it was a totally different experience my second time. They didn't show that I was really sad a lot of the time because it was like back to the place that I was a year before where I was super in love. And this time I was back and kind of, a little heartbroken still. So I cried a lot.
So tough.
Yeah.
Do you think Robbie just wanted the attention, like to be in a relationship on the show, you get more attention?
Yeah.
Do you think that was a catalyst for him?
I don't really know what his intentions are. He's somebody that I can't fully figure out. I think that he definitely does love the attention for sure. Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, all of these recent headlines with Lindsay Chrisley sort of lead that he might want a little more attention, or he doesn't mind being in the spotlight, even if it's not for a great reason.
Yes, I think, from what I've seen, he only dates other reality people from other shows. So I'm like, that's interesting. But yeah, I don't talk to him anymore. We're not in contact, so.
I think that's probably a good call.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the note of Bachelor in Paradise, though, this season has been great. Have you been watching it at all?
I watched the beginning, and then I've been traveling for the last couple weeks, so I need to catch up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I know Dean last night got a lot of people did you guys watch Dean and Kaylin? Do you know what happened?
So he left?
Yeah, and then he came back.
Okay, so then
and
he's
now
back,
he's like confessing his love for her.
Oh, well, that's cute.
Yeah, what do you think about Dean? I mean, Dean seems well-intentioned, but I think he initially left because he didn't feel like he was ready for a relationship and all these things, and now he's saying he is. Do you think Dean can level up and be the man that she needs?
Yeah, so I have a soft spot for Dean. I love him. I think he's very true to who he is, and he can also be really honest. So he's not one of those guys that's just going to tell you what you want to hear. Like with Kaylin, I think he started seeing that maybe he wasn't ready for a relationship, so he removed himself. I think he's self-aware in that way, and he probably has learned from experience, like the first season that he was on. But yeah, I think he has good intentions. I think he's honest. I think Dean's a good guy. I love
like
Dean.
And he's so cute. It's
So
like hard
cute.
not to root for him.
Yeah.
When he smiles, you're like, you'll figure it out, buddy.
Yeah. You're like, I can't be mad at you. Yeah.
It seems like it's hard to date outside of the Bachelor universe once you enter it, but you have, it seems like, successfully sort of stepped away from that, and you're dating people outside of the world. How hard is that to date in real life after being in this sort of bubble?
So it kind of adds another aspect to the dating world where I think some people think it'd be easier after I was on the show, but it's not easier. If anything, it just adds another layer. If you don't know if someone just wants to go on a date with you because you were on the show or whatever it is. But yeah, when I got out of my second relationship off the show, I was like, I don't want to date anybody that's in the Bachelor franchise. I kind of just want to date a normal guy with a normal job who's not involved in reality TV. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not totally against dating someone in the Bachelor world. There's no one I can think of that I would date. But yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And I know social media has been a big part of that for you. It's a nice way to connect with people, but you've also been able to build a business off of it. So can you take me through just how your social media presence grew during The Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise and then after, and what you've been able to do with it?
Yeah, so I was not expecting that when I went on the show. I knew, I had seen some of the past contestants that had a couple 100,000 followers, but I never knew that you could really turn it into a business or anything like that. But I started off before I went on the show with about 2,000 followers. And just within the first night of it airing, it was up to like 20K. But also I feel like Instagram has just grown so much even since I was on the show a few years ago. But yeah, you have this huge following, and I feel like it's smart to be intentional with what you do with it. And I kind of feel like I've built like a community. I love talking to my followers. I have a lot of mom followers, and I try to respond to as many people as I can. So aside from it being a business, I also feel like I have like a little group of friends on there, which is cool.
And you have now over 1 million followers, so you're like in full influencer status. So how do you sort of choose which brands to work with and things that are, you know what I mean, true to Amanda that you want to be a part of?
It's funny because when I was first on the show, like I said, I had no idea that you could get brand sponsorships and actually turn Instagram into a business. And so I would kind of say yes to every brand that reached out to me because I was like, oh my God, they're going to pay me money to post this. This is so cool. And so I did a few sponsorships for things that I didn't really believe in, and I kind of felt bad about it. And so over the years, I've learned more about Instagram and how to use it, and I'm definitely more intentional with what I post about now. But now, I mean, I really won't post for something unless I use it and I believe in it. I turn down a lot of brands, or there's also times where I love something and we can reach out to a brand and be like, oh, I use this and I love it if you have any campaigns. So I think it's definitely a lot more genuine now than it was when I first started. Sorry about that.
I have to say that when I see the influencer role you're playing now, and I would imagine you're able to make a living and support your girls, it makes me really happy, especially reading the book, because it seems like it's been a real journey for you as a mother to like create that stability in that family life that you wanted to. And now I feel like you're able to do that on your own. And how does that feel for you as a mother to show your girls that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's been very empowering because they went from before the show being a stay-at-home mom where their dad worked and I stayed home with the kids and kind of felt a little bit trapped to now being able to support them on my own and be a lot. I think it's really helped me feel a lot more independent and just get to a place now where I don't really feel like I need somebody, which is nice.
I mean, that's huge. I grew up with a single working mom, and they're little, but they see it and they're probably soaking it and taking note, which is why I like that you're doing it, and you write to them in the book.
I do,
and you
yeah.
give them advice. And so can you just take me through why that was important to you to talk to your girls directly in this book?
Yeah, so my girls obviously are not going to read this book anytime soon, but I want them to read it someday. And I think it's important for them to read, where I've been and what I went through and my perspective on things and how I stayed optimistic and how the whole book is, aside from dating advice, it's more about kind of finding yourself and your independence and being happy on your own, which is something that I hope they can do when they get older. It's something that I hope for them. So
And you're not even 30 yet, right?
I'm 29. I turned
Right?
30 in April.
I mean, your 20s you were like really going after it.
Yeah, it was a long decade.
Yeah. So when you look back at just all, I mean, especially like the last 5 years, what's the biggest thing you've learned or the biggest lesson?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned is probably, I think my confidence has came a very long way in the past 10 years. Like I said, looking back at where I started before I went on the show, I was super insecure about my situation and just like my differences with other people my age. And I think it's really important for no matter who you are to kind of embrace your differences and be confident in who you are. So that'd be probably the biggest thing I've learned.
Awesome. Well, before we go, I know we do have a couple of questions from Bachelor Nation here. Who do you have first?
Hi.
Hi.
I was curious what your favorite method for getting over a breakup would be.
So I think every breakup is so different, and I've had breakups that have taken me a year to get over, and like trying to move on too fast, going on a date too fast actually made things worse. And then I've also had breakups where I was okay after. But I think the biggest thing would just be taking care of yourself and letting yourself feel all of those emotions. Like if you're sad, don't try to go out and party to forget about the fact that you're sad. I think you need to just listen to yourself and take care of yourself, surround yourself with friends and family, and just take your time.
You mentioned taking your time, and I remember reading that with your last boyfriend, you waited like 6 dates to kiss versus The Bachelor where it's like in the first hour.
Yeah, I was like super skeptical. Like, I think my guard was up totally, and I was like, it was bad. Yeah. Maybe don't wait that long, but.
Right. But I would imagine being on shows like this really sort of, you have to refigure how to date. I mean, because everything is so heightened, everything moves so fast. You're literally on a hot air balloon on your first date. That's not real life.
And there's a chapter in my book about it, and it's like, what I learned from dating on the show, but also how dating on the show is so different from dating in real life, obviously. But on the show, like, you go on a first date and you're talking about like your past relationships and like your childhood trauma and all this stuff. And like, if you did that on a first date in real life, the person would think you're crazy. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot slower in real life than it is on the show. But it's hard to get used to because you get used to dating like that and talking about your emotions all the time. And in real life, you have to tone it down a little.
You got to take a step, take a
Yes.
beat. And next one.
Hello.
Hi.
So we have a question from our site, buildseries.com, and it's, how would you describe your dream first date?
My dream first date. I'm pretty low key. So I think like a nice dinner somewhere. Also, I'm one of those people, I like to go on a first date somewhere where I'm familiar because it makes me feel more comfortable. So I like to go to like my favorite restaurant that I'm used to going to. It's the lamest first date ever. Oh my God. But yeah, just like a nice dinner, good conversation, good food, good wine. Yeah.
Like we just discussed, that's a real first date.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need like a country music star singing to you while a crowd of people, like,
No.
that's not realistic.
Maybe like that's a good second date if the first date goes well. Then you can go a little bigger on the second one. But you don't want to do something too crazy on the first one because what if it's not going well, you know? Yeah.
You actually, that's one of my favorite parts of the book is you talk to other previous Bachelor contestants about their worst dates.
Yes.
And I forget who it was, but they basically took a 5-hour car ride and then he just like kept taking photos of her and she was just like trapped.
Danielle Lombard.
Danielle, yes.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, that's my dream first date. But yeah, because I think you want like an easy out on a first date. If it's not going well, you can leave. If you go to like Disneyland or something, like you're kind of stuck there for a while. And with Danielle, yeah, it was like a 2-hour car ride or something, and she was stuck in the car on like a terrible date. It's my worst nightmare. So
My worst nightmare. I literally meet for a drink and then I like the tip of make sure you tell them you have something to do later just in case you need an exit strategy.
Yes.
Guys, these are real important things.
Yes.
These can make or break
You
your
have to
evening.
have an exit strategy. And then if it's going well, then you can like fake cancel your fake plans. Right. Yeah.
I also love that you gave some really amazing tips for single mothers who are dating. And, you know, that's something I've never really thought about, but there are just a lot of things you have to do differently.
It's really different because you have to put their needs first. And I also think one of the most difficult things about dating as a single mom is just the judgment that you get, aside from it already being hard on its own. Because just because you're a single mom, you still are going to date. Like, I'm still going to date. Realistically, probably most people that are single moms still want to date. So I think that added pressure there and kind of knowing that everybody's judging you just makes it so much harder. But yeah, there's definitely some rules to go by, I think, and I have that in there too.
You have a lot in there. She's got packing tips for if you go on The Bachelor. She's got parenting tips and just like a lot of amazing insights into this Bachelor Nation world that we all love. So thank you for being so honest and vulnerable. I think a lot of people are going to find things to connect to in the book.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check it out, Now Accepting Roses is available now wherever books are sold. Put your hands together for Amanda Stanton.
Thank you, guys.